her loyal sons. We'll get 'em on the run, boys, we got 'em on the run. Yes, we are her loyal sons. We'll get 'em on the run, boys, we got 'em on the run.
Hello everyone and welcome back to HLS TV. I'm Molly Moran here with Ryan Ritter, and this week is going to be a bit of a sad episode because we do have to discuss Notre Dame's first loss, which came against Clemson. But before we get into that, I did just want to discuss the future of HLS TV. As you probably know, there are some changes going on over at Her Loyal Sons, but HLS TV is going to continue. We're here and the show will go on. Ryan, unfortunately, probably will not be hosting anymore or co-hosting anymore this season. So that's kind of part of the changes that we're going to have to figure out. We may have some different hosts, and then scheduling-wise, my schedule's kind of crazy. So we'll keep you posted, but HLS TV will go on. There just might be some different faces and maybe some different time slots, but it will keep going.
Yeah, you can blame me. It's my fault. I'm the one causing it. I thought at first you were going to say the big change was we're not trying to use Google this time. We
That is true, though.
literally gave up.
Too early. Yes, you switched to Skype, so.
So we'll see what happens. This is going to be my final contribution to HLS TV, and unless I come back as a guest co-host at sometime in the near future. The contribution is going to be we're going to test out this Skype recording thing and see if it's any good.
And it could be the greatest contribution that HLS TV has ever seen, because Google would get very frustrating.
Yeah, it's going to be great letter. It's like, Ryan, you're an idiot. Why did you ever try to use Google Hangouts? But hey, live and learn, and if we can get it figured out, then all the better. I mean, we got to take a shot at it, right? It's better. We're already, I think, holding up longer than we were for our first attempt.
Sadly. We're a minute in, and this is like some sort of record, so.
Right.
Hey.
Okay, yeah, basically, as I've said on my post, was not lying. I'm still going to be here. I'm still going to hang around. As of now, most of it's going to stay on my podcast, which does take up enough of my time. As Molly said, schedules are crazy, and really the biggest thing is my travel schedule is just as crazy. It's probably going to get a little bit worse, so I don't want to try to commit to something that I may not be able to do, so it's just going to make a lot more sense. And really, it's HLS TV. It's not Molly and Tex TV. Molly's the host, and it's going to be really cool to see some new faces come on there. I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be great. Here's some different opinions. Let's be honest, you hear my voice too much as it is. So we're going to get some voices, some new opinions. It's going to be great. I'm sad, but
I'm sad.
I think it's going to be good for HLS TV. It's going to be a lot of fun going forward.
It will, though. We'll roll with it. We'll roll with all the changes.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too sentimental before we get into it, but I just want to say thank you very much for, kind of starting this whole thing and being there with me through all our HLS TV endeavors up to this point.
Yes, so, it's been great. I've had a blast.
Yes, it's been an awesome ride. So I guess that's all that stuff, and I was kind of trying to stall because who wants to talk about the Clemson game, right?
Yeah, let's get some more fun topics.
We have to, exactly. Our job. So Notre Dame went down to Clemson on Saturday, and they did put up a pretty good fight, but it was a little bit too late. So what are your thoughts on the Clemson game, Ryan? Just initial.
I think you called it earlier. The team that makes the least amount of mistakes is going to win. And Notre Dame made the most mistakes, and we're not even talking about two-point conversion issues, which I'm sure we'll get into later. But really, the story was fumbles at the wrong times, and really one of the other big mistakes, and we talked about the Irish need to get off to a fast start. They've done it all season. They did the exact opposite this game, and Clemson came out with an initial game plan that was strong, and really they clammed back up and let Notre Dame get back into this one. Unfortunately, Notre Dame could not get out of their own way enough, and you could point to all kinds of places which drop pass hurt us the worst, which fumble hurt the worst. But in the end, it was too little, too late. I mean, good. It could have been a lot worse. I thought this was going to turn into the Alabama game where we're going to get embarrassed. Thankfully, that did not happen. So, silver lining, yay.
Yeah, I know. It's one of those things where it's like, well, I need something to cling to. We didn't get completely rolled, but frustrating when you see them get back into it, and they could have maybe done it, and then you're like, darn it.
Right, yeah, it's a tough game on the road, and hey, it happens. It sucks. I am pissed that we lost because really it was a game we could have won, and Clemson
Oh,
was
yeah.
trying to let us win. So, hey, that's the overall thoughts of it, I guess, from a very, very high level. Which part do you want to tear into first?
I know, right? There's so many. Goodness. Well, I guess we can start just on both sides of the ball, just an overall analysis, I guess. I guess we can just start with offense.
Yeah. Oh, man. Offense was great in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
The first quarter, Clemson claims that the offensive line had some sort of tell that we were going to run the ball, which was apparently why we were getting blown off the line. Kelly said he's not sure what they were talking about because he didn't have anything changed, because the other part of that claim was we changed something in the fourth quarter. So either the offensive lineman or whoever the one person was on the offensive line changed something. But really what it looked like to me is we were running primarily zone read. So every time we got to that mesh point where Kaiser has the ball out, deciding whether to pull it back or give it off, all the linebackers just came crashing in. It was like, to hell with it. We're going to get to that point and force something bad to happen before Kaiser can beat us. And it worked pretty much every single time. It was like as soon as the decision was made, either the keep or give, there were already three people behind the line of scrimmage, and every run was just an absolute disaster.
Yeah.
And really, because of that, and that was the strength of this team, it became throw the ball, Kelly. Throw the damn ball. It was weird. It was so weird. But in the fourth quarter, they looked a lot better. I don't know if Clemson got tired, if Notre Dame finally found something that was working. We did do a lot more just regular straight-up runs, which I think worked a lot better. So I tend to think that's more what they caught. I don't know about the tell. But, hey, how did you feel about the offense?
Yeah, it was just so hard to watch them struggle to, establish the run game, which just was not going. And it was funny because it was almost like we were a running team that had to become a passing one. And I was like, who am I watching? It's like, am I being forced to pass now? I don't know. It was just difficult to watch because, we could get nothing going until the fourth quarter. And I was excited about that, but just, pulling teeth, I felt like.
It really was, and I guess we could transition to the defense, because kudos to the defense, because they really held it together.
They did.
After that initial weathering of the storm. I can't believe I want to say this, but Poot had a good point. He said, hey, after they got past the scripted plays, which if you're wondering what a scripted play means, if you happen to not be aware, it's basically what at the beginning of the game you want to run, you have X amount of plays planned out. It's like, we want to do this, this, and this. Sometimes you don't always follow the exact script, but it's a general idea of what you're going to try to attack with. And after that point, it was like the creativity left. Now, maybe that was a Dabo thing, and he said, hey, we're just going to be super conservative, not turn the ball over in this crazy-ass rainstorm that we have right now. Or it could be just a, fact of the matter of that they didn't really have a whole lot of creativity beyond that. Their current offensive coordinator is now in SMU right now. He's the head coach of SMU. So maybe they were missing him. Chad Morris, I believe it is, the old offensive coordinator. But whatever it was, defense definitely stepped up as much as they could. They weren't perfect. They were far from it. Lots of big, disastrous plays. But if it weren't for what they did after that first quarter barrage, we're talking about a blowout here.
Right, definitely. Yeah, defense too, just the whole team, at the beginning of the game. There was really experienced guys that just looked like they had no idea where the ball was. Sheldon Day looked lost, Jalen Smith looked lost. At times I was like, oh my gosh, what is happening? And like you said, they pulled it together when they needed to, so I was happy to at least see that. But I was really concerned at the beginning of the game.
Yeah, it was almost like they forgot Deshaun Watson could also run the ball, which he hadn't much this season. But you would think after that first run, you kind of, realize there's something different going on here, folks. And
right, exactly.
So I guess that was probably one of the biggest issues. Deshaun Watson's first play was a huge run. They weren't ready for it. But, hey, man, I don't know.
I know. Well, and then it was hard because any kind of quick start that we could have, we got the ball back in the second half, and then what happens?
Oh, yeah.
I was watching the TV after that. I was like, seriously? Because I thought for sure, second half, I'm sure they got a good talking to in the locker room. They'll come out pumped. We have the ball. Yeah.
Yeah, and I still need to watch the season with. I haven't had a chance yet. I've been in meetings for our fourth quarter kickoff and haven't gotten a chance to get to that yet. But I can imagine that they came out fired up. I mean, it was a different team in the second half in the sense
For sure.
and really this has been a mark of this team all year. The second half adjustments have been good consistently across the board. But yeah, C.J. Sanders making the freshman mistake, to say the least. And of all people, it was the freaking kicker that forced the fumble.
Yep.
But you know what? Despite that, I still want him back there taking the kicks, but not Amir Carlisle.
Yeah.
You could take a seat on the bench forever. You've served well. Your work's done, sir. C.J. Sanders is the return man of Notre Dame now, so at least we settled that. It's a silver lining from the game.
Yeah, it was just an unfortunate time for that to happen. I mean, it's never a good thing, but I felt like we really could have used that momentum right to start the second half. And I was like, darn it. I really did walk away from the TV for a little bit. So
right, which again, it's one of those things to where if you shouldn't be able to come back after that. It was like that should have been the dagger right there.
Yeah, definitely.
And it wasn't. And that's what kind of amazed me about the whole thing, and to the point to where and I want to say this to qualify in case because apparently some Clemson fans have been invading certain Notre Dame shows. ND Fan Radio got invaded, which listen to that when you have a chance. That was
okay.
Joe from Clemson was pretty hilarious. Actually, he was from Atlanta, but a Clemson fan. So if any Clemson fan happens to be watching this, you have a good team. I don't know if you're top 10, top 5 national title good. And the reason is because there was zero, and it's something we complained a lot about Notre Dame, there was zero stomp on the throatness going on. And really, Notre Dame should have been laughed out of Clemson. It should have been a game to where Notre Dame is barely holding on to a top 25 spot, to where you could say they were absolutely exposed. You could say now they had a rough start, but man, Clemson clammed up and Notre Dame took advantage, and good teams take advantage of other teams' mistakes. And even though the mistakes weren't turnovers, the mistake made there was not putting the foot on Notre Dame's throat, and they didn't do it enough. It was almost like they tried when Cole Luke intercepted it. I think that was the last time they even attempted to go downfield. I don't remember them doing it again. So that one turnover Notre Dame got apparently was huge and made Clemson completely clam up for the remainder of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I was really surprised because, I said something about it on Twitter because I was, I'm not usually very negative. I'm a pretty positive person. In that game, I was watching it at a party with, other people around who weren't Notre Dame fans, so I was getting pissed off, and I was just it was awful. And so some people were, so they were kind of trying to, watch the game with me and defend me and such, but I was like, yeah, I know they suck, I'm over it. I was just like, hey guys, just giving in, and I felt awful because then I actually went back to my boyfriend's house afterward. We left when they just started to make their comeback, they got a touchdown, and he was like, hey, they could still be in this. I'm like, yeah, sure. And then we get to his house, I'm like, oh my gosh, they actually are in this. And I was like, I'm so sorry, Notre Dame, please forgive me, because I actually did. I gave up on them a little bit too early, so it's not like me at all.
You said it's like, forgive me. It was like you were talking to
yeah, I was talking to a significant other, but I just felt so bad. I was like, I'm so sorry.
But the best part was
really not like me.
I think that's when Kaiser then threw an interception, and you said, forget it, I'm still mad.
Yeah, that's true. It was a very emotional game though, and I'm not usually like that, but.
Oh man, Twitter was
coaster.
Ooh, Twitter was fire.
Yes, I was going to say, segueing into Twitter and such, I know that there was a lot of talk after the game, and I was so happy. I'd forgotten how Twitter was after a loss, because we just haven't had any up to this point. And there's always, I don't know what it is about us Notre Dame fans, but I get off there real quick because I don't know, we're just very impassioned people. But there was a lot of talk about whether it was the coaches and the play calling, and then people were saying, the coaches didn't fumble the ball, and there's just all this stuff about what the loss actually came from. And it's just one of those things, where my opinion, I feel like it's one of those things where there was a lot of things toward the end of the game that prevented the win, if that makes sense. It's kind of semantics, but those things didn't lose the game. At that point in time, the game could have been won, and things prevented that. But you could go all the way back to the very first drive, and say, oh, well, had that happened then this could have happened. So I think it's too difficult to be like, oh, well, that 2-point conversion call, although I didn't agree with that didn't lose the game, though.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know.
And
so
2-point conversion, man, I swear. And here's the thing, because I disagree with you. I agree with the 2-point call, and it's much different than the fact that it is everybody's been posting the chart where down by 12 you go for 2. It's not so much that part of the game theory, because that does. Yeah. I mean, that alone doesn't make enough sense to go to 2. And if you look back at Notre Dame games, Kelly does not exclusively follow what that chart says. It's a part of how aggressive do you want to be as the end game is approaching. Now, in a normal game, I would have been a little upset that Kelly had gone for it, say that was overly aggressive. This was not a normal game, at least in my opinion, because you finally got a touchdown. It was the fourth quarter, and you finally got a touchdown. So at that point, you're not thinking you're going to all of a sudden go on a tear with your offense for the rest of the quarter.
Yeah, fair enough.
So I see where he was basically the game theory is you only have so many drives in the game. Kelly saw the drives getting limited, so it was my defense is playing well. I think they can hold them, and my offense is only going to have so many chances. I would rather it be a touchdown and a field goal than need a touchdown and a touchdown. And here's the other part. You do think if I miss the 2-point conversion, I'm not going to miss 2 in the same game. And the averages are actually a little bit below that. If you look, I think I saw 40-something%. So it's a little less than a coin flip. So it's still a risk. But here's the thing, having been on the sidelines and watching teams practice 2-point conversions, you run these things from fall camp to where you have really a couple plays in the back pocket that you believe are for sure going to score you a 2-point conversion. And if one misses, the other one's going to work. And if you think about it, the first one that was called worked. It was just dropped.
That's true. That's true.
It went right through Corey Robinson's hands. And, the argument is, well, they should have never been in that position. But fine, there is logic, and I understand if people disagree. But it was, in my opinion, the right call from that standpoint. Kelly does lean on the more aggressive side, and I get why he went for it. I agree with the decision because this is a monsoon. The offense is sucking.
Yeah.
But if this is a game in Notre Dame Stadium where, say, God forbid, we end up in the situation against Navy, if Kelly went for 2 with 14 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter, I'd be ballistic because if he doesn't believe that the defense could figure out an inferior team and they can't score against them, we got all kinds of issues. But
okay, yeah, fair enough. I can understand that school of thought. But I guess, my standpoint, I was just I just want the point. You know what I mean? I just want a point.
And in hindsight, it looks terrible because then if you do kick the extra point, and then you kick another extra point, the game's tied and you're not winning by 2. But
at the same time, you could go as far back as hindsight is, oh, well, if Malik Zaire weren't hurt and he were in the game. I mean, you know what I mean? Some of that stuff you can take so far that it's but it happened this way. And from that point of the failed two-point conversion on, they still had chances to win. So
it's just an easy scapegoat.
It is, for sure. And people just have short memories. It's if it comes down to a kicker, you're always going to blame the kicker. But should the team have ever been in that position? Again, that's the kicker prevented the win, perhaps, but he did in no way cause the loss because you had a whole rest of the game to have that go down a different way.
Right, and if Robinson catches the ball and Kelly even on the sideline, you could read his lips. Do you want to play? You want to be in the game, son? Well, catch the damn ball.
Right.
And he catches it, and all of a sudden, Notre Dame scores that last touchdown. That extra point wins the game. And, we're talking all of a sudden, man, Kelly had so much guts to go for 2.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's going for it on fourth down. If I'm more angry about, he did have a situation where he could have gone for it on fourth down, but he punted instead. That one, I think, was
Didn't agree with that.
hang your hat on. And as the third quarter expired, they decided to let the clock run out instead of taking a shot, which I know the idea is I got the wind behind me now. It's going to be easier to pass. No, screw that. You're trailing. Go after. Again, I'm aggressive. And
You're aggressive.
super aggressive. I want to go ahead and go for it because it's the same thing I was thinking. You only have so many possessions left. Maximize your potential from there. And, man, it's rough, and I understand it, but if you really are trying to harp on Kelly and it's for the 2-point conversion, you're convinced that's why Notre Dame lost the game, I say you suck at watching the games because you totally miss the point of what happened the rest of the time. And it's also like Golson getting blamed for every loss that he had.
Right.
Outside of the turnovers where he did cost them, but there was some other ones where it was like he's not playing defense, folks. This isn't his fault. The defense could have figured it out too.
Exactly.
So there's always so many ways you can lose a football game, and it's like blaming the referees, in my opinion.
For sure.
It's the same theory.
Yeah, there's just too many components to try to boil it down to one play or one player or one coach. I think the game's a little bit more complicated than that, but I totally understand. Just an emotional thing, and we lost, so I put up with it for a day.
I think the double part of it is because we're not in a conference, so for Notre Dame fans, it's all or nothing.
Right.
So here's where I become a little bit more positive about how it's going. 2015 is the weirdest season I can remember in some recent history.
Yeah.
I really think we could have a chance a 2-loss team is going to make the playoffs, and it's going to be a conference champ. Only because of how everything's spilling out right now. Ohio State looks vulnerable. I don't know what's going on with them. They could figure it out, and they're not going to have another slip-up the rest of the way, but they nearly lost to Indiana.
Yeah.
Baylor has looked pretty strong for the most part. They're just now getting into the Big 12 schedule, and they looked pretty shaky when they went against SMU, of all people. And they also had an FCS team stick with them for a half. They're going to run into a team that they can't do that against. And, Texas Tech has a good offense, but they're not the best team in the Big 12. They still got to go through OU, who looks good, and TCU, they're right up there as well. They have a chance to run the table, but they've had some issues as well. They've had the injury bug hit them too, so they have a chance to drop a game. OU, big game Bob always seems to blow one. And, the SEC, there's really nobody that looks dominant in the SEC right now. And this isn't, I think the SEC sucks. It's Ole Miss went in, beat Alabama at home, and then got their faces blown off when they went to the Swamp against Florida, and nobody saw that coming.
Yeah.
And Texas A&M, they might be a favorite to win the West. I'm a huge Aggie fan, but their defense hasn't looked, it looks better, but it's still got some holes, and their offense sometimes can't get on track when it should. So, folks, there is so much that could happen. I'm not saying let's be frank, there's a lot of injuries, so if we make the playoff, it's a minor miracle. If we somehow won the title after that, it's holy crap, it's an unbelievable miracle, and we all may just want to retire from vlogging on everything all together because it's not going to get any better than that. Yeah. But this probably isn't a national title caliber team. I think we knew that when Zaire and Folston both went down. So it's okay to temper expectations a bit, but I really don't see a New Year's Six Bowl being out of the question, not only if the Irish run the table, but if they happen to slip up again, because there's still some tough spots on the schedule, but let's not pretend the entire season is over. I'd never buy into that. It ain't over until it's over. You keep playing through. You try to get into the best bowl you can because you want to get a quality opponent to build on for next year. Beating LSU last year in the bowl game, even though there were some people that were on our site saying they don't, commenting on our site rather, saying they don't deserve to go to a bowl game, that win against LSU was so huge because it proved Zaire could play, it built confidence for him into next season, and really probably sent into motion of events of Golson going to Florida State, which could be a blessing in disguise because he hasn't looked great there this season as well. They barely beat Wake Forest. That's another undefeated team that looks shaky. So that's huge. It sucks that we lost, but it ain't over yet. There are still very high marks this team can reach.
No, I completely agree. And I do think that comeback at the end of the game made me feel a lot better. And they've been blown out. I've been like, forget this. But I was like, you know what? All right, fair enough. They didn't roll over and die. They put up a really good fight. And, considering how it looked, I was pretty happy with that. I mean, still really sad that we lost. So a loss is a loss. But, hey.
Yeah, there are no moral victories.
No, not at all. But I think it's just, telling of your team and what they, can do. So.
Right. But so we're tripping all over each other.
No, I was just like, so hopefully they can come back next week and be better than that.
Yeah, and really that's one mark of a good team is they don't give up. Another mark of a good team is after you have that heartbreaking loss, how do you rebound?
How do you come out? Yeah.
Now, if Notre Dame has, it's another letdown look-ahead sandwich. The buffet ends in October. This is the third one that we've run into. And Navy is a tough physical team. With the way they play, they beat you up. And Notre Dame just had a rough physical game against a Clemson defensive line that is very rough. The offensive line got huge pushes on the defensive line. So the big boys are worn down. But if you can coach that team up to have a performance like you did against Georgia Tech, and better yet, you don't let that almost backdoor cover type stuff happen against Georgia Tech, you're all of a sudden in great shape. And you now have all the confidence in the world. Again, you're like, okay, we beat Navy, we beat the team we should get. Now we got Southern Cal coming in at home. And then if we can get through that, we have a bye. And that changes your entire outlook on the season because you beat an opponent who I'm still not sure how good they are because Stanford rolled them, and Stanford got beat by Northwestern. And Stanford put up a ton of points on Southern Cal's defense, and they just did not look good. So it's going to be a question of if you get to that point, man, the season looks a lot better. Yeah, it sucks you have one loss, but you still have so much football left to be played, and that goes for everybody that's undefeated right now, and they are not going to be holding on the way this season's shaping out. They just can't.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's definitely an interesting college football season in that I don't think there's a team that looks overwhelmingly dominant. So.
You will see a lot of, and I even said this at one point where it's like, I don't think anybody's good. And I saw that from so many national bloggers and writers, like, nobody's good this season. No. I didn't even mention UCLA. They got their time. Arizona State got blown out by Southern Cal. They look like frauds. UCLA, who blows out Arizona, looks like a real contender. And then Arizona State whips their ass. I don't understand this one bit.
Nope, just along for the ride.
Yeah, pretty much. It's all about rebounding
for sure.
At this point. And, man, and if Notre Dame does, God forbid, lose to Navy, then you can start asking some tougher questions. Okay, is this coaching staff able to stop the downward spiral? We can't repeat 2014. If it happens again, that seat's going to start to get a little bit warm on Kelly's backside. It won't get him fired. If he loses out and, the team is, retweeting at halftime that they're going to transfer like what's going on in Texas, then maybe, something he could be considered for firing, but that ain't going to happen. But things would get a little warm for Kelly if 2014 collapse happens again. And I also think that's why so many people are reacting like this, because it feels too much like Florida State all over again.
I can understand that. I don't want it to be that way. And I think obviously Nelly, I can't even talk. Navy, my goodness, I'm still hungover or something from Saturday.
You need Philly Kelly to do a Photoshop somehow to put Nelly in the Navy.
Totally, we're doing that. No, yes, Navy is going to be very telling because I agree. You need to see how the team can come out after a loss, and honestly, I don't know why, but Navy is one of those teams that always. Well, I know why, but Navy is one of those teams that scares me. On this, looking at the schedule, I was more afraid of Navy than I was of Clemson. And I know it sounds dumb, but I don't know. I feel like Navy.
That's a scarred past you're talking from. That's what that is.
Yeah.
Because I was certainly more afraid of Clemson. Still, it's just because my fears from Navy are lessened because of what we did against Georgia Tech. It's there's that swag team ready to prep.
That's true. That's true.
And that clearly. I am shocked because I think Paul Johnson and what Georgia Tech does is leaps and bounds better than what Navy does, even though they're still following the Paul Johnson playbook. Even though Paul Johnson's an asshole, but he's a likable asshole because I kind of like that he, unless he's playing Notre Dame, I kind of like to see him suffer. But I just love his no nonsense. I can still kick your ass with this old school offense. Although this season it looks like everybody's finally caught up. Because they lost to Duke as soon as they lost to Notre Dame. So Georgia Tech may not be good either. That's kind of weird. But I don't think Navy's better than Georgia Tech. I will say that much. And, hopefully that swag team will work.
Yeah, that is true. We have seen how they can fare against a triple option already this season. So that's good.
Yeah, but Then the other side of the argument, though, is that, and something to be aware of, now there's game tape of Notre Dame playing this season against a triple option attack. Can
true.
Navy, and that it's a chess game, can Navy make the adjustment when they come out, say, we're keying in on this and this, so maybe if we do this, we can trip Notre Dame up. But I tell you what, Paul Johnson tried a lot of that during the game, and everybody stayed pretty disciplined on the ball, I think, except for maybe like one or two plays for Navy. I know the trick plays always frighten everybody. As far as the eye discipline goes, the new buzzword going around every Notre Dame site now. But if they can do half of what they did against Georgia Tech, I think the Irish will be fine. I'm not worried about the offense. I think that offense is going to be so pissed off after Clemson.
Yeah, that's true. They probably want to show off a bit and get back out there and do what they wish they could have done against Clemson.
ProSize had a bad game. The freshmen barely got any carries. And I had this theory against UMass that the freshmen were going to be hungry to show what they could do, and they exploded. Yes, it was UMass qualifier, but I feel like that's the attitude that these players have, that I played like crap and I want to show you that that's not what I'm about, or I didn't get the ball enough. I'm going to show you that's not what I'm about.
I agree with that.
I get that attitude of this team. And I think them coming back against Clemson was proof of that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So maybe I'm not so scared of Navy after all. This is a good pep talk.
You're supposed to be the optimistic one here.
I know. I don't know what's happened. I blame this crazy season.
It has been crazy, and injuries last night, Saturday night as well. On the offensive line. So I mean, it's just this season, and it's happening to everybody. Which injuries are never an excuse, but it just sucks when it piles up to this level.
It does, yeah, because I mean, it's going to change your approach to things. I mean, when you don't have certain players you're expecting to have, so
and
it's difficult to overcome.
And I question how healthy Stanley is. It was supposed to be no issue, but he looked terrible.
Yeah, he did look terrible.
Kicked all over the place at Clemson.
Yeah, my dad and I were talking about that. He's like, isn't he supposed to, I don't know,
he had
able to exert some sort of
oh no, it was
will against other players? I was like, yeah, you'd think.
Yeah, and really it showed in that last 2-point conversion. It was run away from Stanley's side because we don't want to go after that end. He's kicked our ass all game long. And then the defensive line still won the battle. And, the whole line won the battle. It wasn't just one person. They ran it away from him. He was unblocked because the play wasn't going there. And every other defensive lineman won their battle. And that play, when that happens, you're doomed from the start. And we didn't even get into that play call. Not my favorite. I will say,
so many.
As much as I defended Kelly about going for two, that play call was not my favorite. I understand why he called it. I went on a long Twitter, I went frame by frame looking at it, kind of giving my thoughts. So I see why he called it. I see why Kaiser didn't check into pass. The play would have worked on paper, but Clemson was playing too good that night to try that, honestly.
I know. This is not fun.
Oh.
It's not, I know.
My last episode for the foreseeable future, and it's so sad.
I know, and it's a Clemson loss. Boo. Or Notre Dame lost to Clemson. Boo.
I'm sure the Clemson loss will come later.
Yeah, I'm sure. They're going to...
They're Irish fans talking.
Yeah, and I'm going to the USC game, so I guess I was just so sad, too, because I just really wanted them to be undefeated going into USC, but I'd be happy seeing a one-loss.
Tell you what, let's see if USC can hold on and be undefeated when they come by, because if they are, I would love to tarnish that record. That'd be fun.
True.
That'd make me happy.
True. Yeah, I'll take that, too.
To look back, when the last, big game to take down an undefeated team was maybe Oklahoma? Were they undefeated back in 2012? I forget.
How sad is that? I want to, you would think they were just because of the hype going into that game and how much they were acting like they were.
Let's see what the Googles can tell me. Now that we're doing Skype, you can see side-by-side video when we're talking, so that's where my attention is. I'm on my other monitor. No, the Sooners. Hey, this was weird. This is why I thought they had a better record. They were 5-2 at that point in the season.
Okay.
But they were ranked number 8.
Okay.
Let's see if I can find out who those losses were to. I'm sure.
I knew it was like a huge deal. Well, one, we were undefeated, but yeah, I knew like beating them was huge.
Yeah, so.
Huh.
Okay, they lost to Kansas State, who, if you remember that season, almost ended the season undefeated themselves.
Okay.
Okay. The box score listed Notre Dame as the second loss, so they came into the game 5-1.
Oh, okay.
So afterwards, I forgot ESPN on their box scores puts the record at the conclusion of the game.
I gotcha. So they had one loss.
Yeah, and they lost to Texas A&M in the Cotton Bowl. I forgot about that. That was a fun game for me to watch. But then,
I'm sure.
So that was a really good Oklahoma team. But yeah, not undefeated. That may be something. Maybe I'll do that for the roundup. Try to what is the last big opponent that Notre Dame faced and beat when they were undefeated? That's a good one, I think, to look up on.
Yeah.
I'll see how far back we have to go because gotta find big things to happen because those things can turn the season, and all of a sudden, I mean, if you went out, this Clemson loss becomes, and in the playoff committee, it's like, guys, Notre Dame lost by 2 in a hurricane.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so
that's why I was so happy with it being that close, because I was like, I think that's a little bit more forgivable than getting completely blown out.
Yeah, and they said last year
forgivable.
When discussing Oregon, they took into account the injuries that Oregon had. They said that team has players back that weren't there when they lost. That's something you can take into consideration. So now, granted, Notre Dame's not getting some of the players back.
Yeah, I was going to say.
But that may be something that comes into play. It's like, okay, this team has been injured, yet they're still doing this. So, hey, maybe it may not be a playoff spot that is being debated, but that could be the bump that gets them to a New Year's Six Bowl as well. And those games, that's like the BCS, folks. That's what you want to be in.
Right.
And those are huge statement games because the Irish will get a quality opponent to show what they're made of.
Mm-hmm.
And the hope is you win so then you can kick back and say, yeah, the committee screwed up. We should have been the 4th seed.
Right.
So you got to take that in there. I know it's less than what we want, but let's all be honest. As soon as Zaire went down,
oh yeah,
no one was thinking national title. Let's be honest.
So that for me is a pretty big goal at this point in time. I'd take it and be ecstatic.
Right.
We're in a New Year's Six Bowl.
Excuse me.
Getting all choked up.
I know it's so sad. This
it is sad.
It's all ending soon.
Okay, so. No, we've been all over the place, but we wouldn't want Ryan's last episode to be any different than all the other ones. So all over the place is good.
Yeah.
Let's see. We pretty much covered Clemson. We kind of looked ahead to Navy a bit. We're not too scared of them anymore.
Yeah, well, we're not going to look past them, that's for sure.
For sure, yeah.
I
will say, I don't think this team has looked past anyone necessarily.
No, they
had some slow starts, but I don't think that's them being cocky or anything.
I think the biggest issue with this Notre Dame team, if we're really looking at the one big issue, there's this section of time in a game to where you wonder what the hell happened to them. And it didn't happen at all against Texas. Texas was dominating from start to finish. Against Virginia, they had huge issues. That lapse for Virginia came back. Granted, Zaire went down, but even before that, the defense was looking shaky. So there was that period where things were looking shaky, and then the defense stepped up, the offense stepped up, and, of course, Kaiser has that incredible bomb to Fuller.
Right.
Against UMass, there was that stretch of 8 or 9 minutes where you're like, what the hell's going on? UMass is making this again. And against Clemson, this was the first time the Irish came out, and the what the hell's going on happened immediately because the Irish have always been strong out of the gate.
Yeah.
It was the first time they didn't force a 3-and-out on defense on the first drive, and the first time they've been outscored in the first quarter all season. But that was their WTF stretch. So, and that's really, and you can't afford that against, and Georgia Tech, I forgot them. End of the game was that
End of the game, yeah.
So if they can figure out how to limit that, I think some of that may be youth. Kavari Russell as well, you thought his experience would help that secondary. I think he's still knocking off some rust.
I think so, too, because he's looked kind of lost.
Yeah, and I think now I know why Kelly has wanted him at the nickelback position.
Yeah.
Because really he's I think, used him more as a run defender almost, or relying more as a run defender out of the nickel than pass, because his pass defenses have not looked that great. He doesn't look like the All-American he was in 2012, but you have a year off. It's not surprising.
Exactly, it's going to happen.
And you hope he can fix that before Southern Cal, who has a great passing offense.
Yes.
So And really, I think that's the big thing. If you want to say the one problem with the Notre Dame team beyond everybody's dying and their legs are falling,
Right, yeah. That's that.
that's it. It's that one stretch that it could cost the Irish in a game. And really, like you said, there's many different things, but you can really say if that stretch, that first quarter stretch didn't happen, if they maybe only give up one touchdown or a touchdown and a field goal, they don't give up 14 points and just look shell-shocked, that game may have a completely different outcome.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I thought they would need a quick start. I mean, you kind of always do in a game. You don't want to start in a hole, and especially against Clemson, it was just kind of what I thought couldn't happen if we wanted to win, although they were able to come back at the end.
Yeah, and my dumb comment there was, the Irish always start great. I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about letting Clemson back into it. Go me. I completely have that outcome backwards.
No, I mean, and who would have thought? Because they usually are really good at the start, but they just chose that time to have their derp streak at the beginning. Good one.
That's a little term, derp streak. That's a
Streak.
hashtag derp streak.
Yeah. Just got to either not have one at all or time it a little bit better, guys. So, not at the beginning.
Oh, my. Are we at MVPs or did we miss something?
I think we're good. I think we can go on to MVPs.
This will be
So painful to pick. Like, not like I don't want to give them out, but like when you win, you're like, you get an MVP, you get a star, everybody's great. And now I'm like, I know some people did good stuff. But who? No. Okay, so let's start with offense. I'll start. I think I'm going to give it to Kaiser. Kind of weird, but I thought he actually, all things considered, managed the game pretty well, and I guess I'm not really worried with him at quarterback. Not that I was worried with Malik Zaire. I guess I'm kind of going back to more worrisome days of Everett Golson, but I thought he actually managed the game pretty well, all things considered, because we kind of discussed him being a, freshman. Is he a freshman?
Redshirt freshman.
Yes, thank you. I was like, what am I talking about? Guys, oh my gosh, what game is it this season?
Or if Notre Dame's doing the official roster, he's a sophomore.
Well, see, there, I was confused. No, but we were just questioning his ability to manage the game, and I think he did pretty well, all things considered. So I don't think he was the problem. Not that any one player was the problem, but...
Yeah, he limited mistakes. He wasn't the most accurate, but again,
No.
he's in horrible weather. I mean, passes were sailing on him a little bit. One terrible pass, I called it the...
Right, which I feel like, Everett Golson would turn the ball over 5 and 6 times sometimes. Not to bring that up, but I just feel like, every quarterback's going to have one bad throw, and he's as inexperienced as he is. So I was like, I feel like I can accept that from him. Not to give him a pass, but...
And we were expecting that with Zaire, too, so it's going to happen. And I called it the Andrew Hendricks. I forgot there was a linebacker memorial interception because that's exactly what that was. I loved Hendricks. I thought he was...
Oh, Andrew Hendricks,
I thought the sky was the limit for him. One of my best HLS gaffes of saying, no, this is the best quarterback on the roster, folks. I'm going out on a limb here. It's Andrew Hendricks. I was so wrong because...
you did say you went out on a limb, so...
Yeah. That middle linebacker, you can never figure out where that guy was. But I'm giving it to Chris Brown. He had a hell of a game.
That's true. He stepped up a lot.
Did have a terrible fumble at the goal line, but really, if you're looking at the one receiver who had the most consistent performance.
He really did, especially for a receiver that we hadn't really been hearing about also. It was Fuller, and then Chris Brown really did have a breakout game.
Yeah, and if you remember back in 2012, that was the guy streaking down, the middle of the field, wide open, 70-some yards, and you're like, who's number 2? Holy crap.
I know. Yeah, I always associated him with deep miracle passes.
Had some issues catching the ball, and he shaped it up. He looked good.
Yeah.
And that Notre Dame comeback somebody's got to step up, and he stepped up in a big way.
For sure.
So that's why I will give him the offensive MVP. But I love your points about Kaiser because that was a big moment. That was a big situation. And he managed to settle into it. That is not something we should discount at all, despite the one interception and despite the loss.
Yeah.
So, do you want?
Yeah, I feel like I was gonna say I feel like our MVPs this time everybody made mistakes. So it's like who made
Yeah, it's who made the least / stepped up. So, do you want me to start on defense then?
Sure.
Man.
I know, right? That's why I let you start.
You know what, man. I really don't know in this one because it was so tough. Cole Luke had a big play, but
He did.
he had, I mean, beyond that, there wasn't much else that he did too fantastic.
No.
You know what, Redfield, man, I don't know if I can give it to him there because he still took some bad angles as well, but he played with a different fire in his belly. I can at least recognize that.
I was gonna say on defense, I feel like it's more like recognizing certain plays.
Yeah, that's really
Tough.
Yeah, that's tough, and I wish I had thought a little bit more about it before the show.
It's okay, that's why I let you go first. I was just gonna say Joe Schmidt.
Yeah, I mean, he had a solid game. He didn't make any mistakes, and the defensive line did enough. So we'll go with the moment because I'll go with Luke because let's be honest.
Yeah.
If I'm going to give it to Brown, because without his performance, we don't come back. To be honest, without Luke intercepting that pass in the
Yeah, that was
zone,
huge.
it wasn't just big to prevent the touchdown. It got Notre Dame an extra possession we were not expecting.
Yeah, for sure.
So
That was definitely clutch.
yeah, I'll do that for it. It was a big enough moment, man. I don't know if I call it MVP, but worth enough for me to notice. So
Most valuable
Play.
I don't know. Yeah, play.
most valuable defensive play, but yeah, I mean the defense as a whole stepped up, but
Yeah.
there was really no.
Kind of tough to single out one player.
There was just no standout, which maybe was a big issue because if you think about it, the lapses. It has been who on the defense is going to step up and take care of things. Most of the time it's been Jalen, but Jalen didn't quite take it over. And honestly, that's what good teams do. They say that's the impact player. Scheme around him. Don't let that guy beat us and blow up our drive. So
Right.
yeah, they did the same thing with Teo and Nix, Alabama, in the title game. So that's what you do when you're a good team.
Yep.
All right, so
Yeah.
who's your MVP?
I'll go with him because I don't want to think anymore. I'm kidding. No.
Him or
No,
Janet?
No, I think that I think Cole Luke is I think that's a good point, probably for most valuable play because again, I just think the defense as a whole, no one really did step up. I mean, again, it was frightening in the beginning because Sheldon Day had moments where he was lost and Jalen Smith was lost. Granted, they had moments where they made great plays, but it was just weird because even some of our best shining stars on defense kind of lost their footing a little bit. So
It was just not what we would expect.
no, for sure. I think we just hold them to a little bit of a higher standard because we know what they're capable of, and it just was unfortunate. It just didn't really come out against Clemson when we needed it to. But
Yeah, at least the good things happened at some point. So that's
They
the
did.
important part.
They
Again,
did.
just because we're struggling with MVPs here, the defense held
No, they
this
did.
thing together.
they did. I mean, honestly, again, no moral victories, but I do still. I mean, I just think the end of that game really does speak a lot to this team. They said that they had an attitude where they weren't going to lose. They ended up losing, but you could tell that they took that attitude into those last couple drives. Like, we're not losing. We're not going to lose. And, I think that's important because this team has been through a lot already this season. And, I mean, even just think of the leadership aspect. I know Malik Zaire's still around, but you're listening to Kaiser now. He's a little runt compared to everyone. He's just he's nobody.
It's like a seasoned veteran in interviews, man. I mean, it's really impressive. And the other thing,
Exactly, yeah.
as well, is when a higher ranked team gets upset on the road, what you expect to happen for that to actually occur is the better team, if you want to do quote-unquote better team, makes more mistakes. And Notre Dame made so many more mistakes, and that's how you have the upset happen. Now, this isn't so much the same upset scenario because Clemson is a good team. They're better than decent. I don't know if they're great, but they're definitely good. So this was a good team you're playing against, and good teams will do that to you. Bad teams will do it to you too. And we learned that the hard way in 2014.
Yeah, we did. Let's not have that happen going into this final stretch of the season.
That would be nice.
That would be awesome. Let's just keep on keeping on. Yeah, so we take on Navy next week. And like we said, I think this game will be huge in just, kind of showing how the Irish can bounce back after a loss, which is really telling. And then we know that they have to face USC at home. So we will see how this goes. I don't know. Kind of already looked ahead to Navy a bit. We've just been all over the place.
Yeah, and I think
Get a new hashtag. I mean,
dope streak. All right. Well, I tell you what, Molly. I know you said some nice things about me. I'm glad you became a part of the team. It's been a joy to have you,
Thank you.
a resident fashion expert plus HLS TV host. Hopefully, I'll be able to come back on every now and then. But it's been fun. You've done great.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, you're always welcome.
Yeah.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, it's been fantastic, and I can't wait to see how this grows going forward. I think it's going to be good to get somebody else in the co-host chair. So I'm excited for the future of HLS TV.
I'm very excited as well. And I also want to thank everyone that actually tunes in and listens and watches, because I remember when we first started this idea, I was kind of like, okay, let's give it a whirl. And I'm really excited that we have people that want us to keep this going, because I love doing it. So I'm excited.
All right. Well, I think that's farewell.
I know. I don't even know what to do from here. I guess. I don't know.
Hey, we always do. Just kind of sign off.
I guess so, yeah.
And her little son's music plays in the background.
Yeah, I guess that's it. But yeah, so go Irish, beat Navy midshipmen.
Says we are her loyal sons.